This is from the newsletter. There are times when it seems like we get our system of values from television productions. Professional wrestling is one of the few programs which started on TV in the late 1940s and now claims more viewers than ever. There are no rules, and it is associated with contrived but unreal violence, mockery of the referee, racism, absence of sportsmanship, yelling, screaming, and hatred. Reasonable rules of decency are totally ignored. The show gets worse every year. Belt, chains, cages are now part of the act. 20 wrestlers are put into a ring without a referee and a free-for-all erupts. The more violent, the more the crowd cheers the ridiculous charade, whatever. Okay, moving on. Here, Dr. Paul writes that racism is a bad value portrayed by the ridiculous charade of 1980s professional wrestling. That is not at all the writing of a racist. Are we to believe that a 52-year-old, soon-to-be candidate of a third party, who through his history in Congress and previous writing displayed a certainty in his views, including his opposition to racism as expressed here, and did so in a highly scholarly manner that avoids unverifiable speculation, would all of a sudden become a raging racist peddler of ignorant stereotypes? That is just completely irrational. The next point I would like to address in his statement in the 2001 issue of the Texas Monthly, in which he stated that he did not write the newsletter comments. The left blogosphere has had a field day with these, claiming that they make no sense and stink of doing some politically advantageous running. Here's the question. What is the advantage of someone who has won 3 straight elections, each by increased margins, who has de facto established himself as an entrenched House incumbent for as long as he wants to be there, and who has not actively sought any type of higher political office, and all of a sudden backtracking from comments that hadn't been brought up for several years and had yet to cost him any type of political trouble? Furthermore, why would he even waste his time to write on the topic of racism not once but twice, in which his comments are essentially identical to Ayn Rand's argument? Over the years in his online column, while this is the case, furthermore, if Dr. Paul was so much as according the racist vote, why would he specifically argue for that the war on drugs and the death penalty are unjust in their discriminatory treatment against minorities? I'm going to break away from the article and just point out something to you. He actually went to the Democratic debate, I think what was the NAACP, where it was an all-black audience, basically. But he went, and he's supposed to be a racist, yet and afraid of black people because they could, rip them apart, old frail white men. But most of the other front runners, including Giuliani and Romney, didn't go. I mean, if you're going to call him a racist, why don't you call out Romney and Giuliani on it? And Giuliani, now, if you research Giuliani's history, he shouldn't even be running. He shouldn't even have the audacity to run. This guy, he's terrible. Racially as well, he has a really bad record with blacks. I think there's a couple rap records out there, threatening to kill him. But moving on. I'm sorry, but the idea of a sinister, politically advantageous scheme by Ron Paul to dupe voters into thinking he's not racist when in fact he is just an idea. Wait a minute. Whatever. Whoever wrote this screwed up big time. Quite frankly, makes no sense. But it's actually somewhat interesting, considering that the people who perpetuate it, i.e. the left-wing blogosphere, love to bash him for possessing the irrationality of a conspiracy theory nut. Can we finally throw out the untrue and unfoundable Ron Paul is a racist charge? Considering the evidence, I would have to conclude that there is, in fact, no evidence proving Ron Paul is a racist. We are a country that prides itself on allowing people to be innocent until proven guilty. I think we should continue that trend. After all, it is a part of the constitutional process that is losing more and more traction today. In fact, almost every single right guaranteed us under the Constitution has either been broken or distorted in one way or another. That is the issue we should be addressing. Why is it today that blacks have completely reversed their successes from the 1920s to the 2007 today? We went from having a 90% legitimacy rate of black homes having a mother and a father to 90% only having a mother. We went from having an enormous amount of productivity, black engineers, scientists, bankers, entrepreneurs, inventors, athletes that excelled in society. We went from having scientists and speakers who would be considered historical icons like Frederick Douglass actually being allowed admission into the White House to meet regularly with the president, to the McCoys working with other great men, like Edison. I think that speaks volumes and thoroughly debunks any beliefs of black inferiority. I think that if you go into detail about the FBI and CIA's history of curtailing black successes and actually interfering violently to destroy our communities, it becomes clear that there is indeed a conspiracy that to this day has no answer as to why those crimes took place. If you look at Ron Paul's speeches and platforms, he advocates the abolition of the FBI and CIA, citing that their record speaks for itself against any notion that they are beneficent to society. Look at the 1960s to the 1970s, when they were murdering all of our leaders, and white America's leaders. Let's not forget, selling drugs into our communities. It's apparent that Ron Paul knows exactly what's going on. And indeed, he may have supported any writings that were intent on venting their anger onto any form available, seeing as how they were just as confused and angry by what was happening as we were. I am in no way apologizing for racism. In fact, I am intensely Afrocentric. Yet, to ignore the historical precedents would mean to denounce any and all understanding of how and why a person came to their conclusions, and therefore how to fix the problem. Ron Paul answers how to fix a problem, and therefore deserves praise for his bravery to stand up and to acknowledge when mistakes have been made, and the right remedy for it. I'd insist that to come to the proper conclusion, we should infer a hypothetical. Let's pretend that Ron Paul is a racist. Judging by his track record, he has actually voted in a manner that would expressly benefit the entire black community in America. Low to zero taxes, government transparency, oversights, and transparencies of the monetary units our society uses, deregulation of businesses and land, and the defederalization of land that should belong to the people, not the government. Therefore, personally, it should strike the rational mind that since Dr. Paul follows his own message, practicing what he preaches, and that is strictly constitutionalism, allowing people to practice their own beliefs so long as it remains nonviolent, it wouldn't matter if he was a raging racist or any other thing that today's society chagrins. This man is talking about saving black America, because I don't know if you noticed, we're not doing so well. We're not so healthy, and our so-called leaders won't even talk about the CIA shipping in those drugs, let alone the fact that welfare destroys economic growth. Have you even heard Obama talk about the prison industrial complex? Well, guess what? Old racist white man Ron Paul certainly does. And if you go to YouTube, that video clip, you can see in his eyes that he's seriously concerned. So it should come as no surprise that if Fox says something like Ron Paul is a racist, you should immediately acknowledge the reverse. Any establishment source is obviously tainted. Haven't we learned anything? These people are criminal. Go research Ron Paul's record. He's practically the second coming of Christ over here. You know what I mean? But if you go look at my profile and the stuff I've talked about, you know I'm one of the most pro-black nationalists. Moving on. When's the last time you heard Obama say anything about the Federal Reserve destroying our dollar, or the crooked American system stealing our children away from us? My brothers are victims of the prison industrial complex. My mother is a victim of the welfare complex. My old community back home has completely devolved due to overregulation, destruction of competition, and inability to find proper investments for new businesses. Not to mention police corruption. Why doesn't Al Sharpton talk about that? Every day that goes by that these people aren't screaming at the top of their lungs to fix the problems of our communities being raped, is a day that you should recognize that they are not our friends and they do not speak for us. On the other hand, Ron Paul certainly talks about giving us freedoms to do what we want and to not be arrested for sagging our pants or raped and sodomized because we spoke back to the police. I don't see why this is so hard to comprehend.